All right there, everyone. It is now official. The British Parliament has soundly defeated Theresa May's withdrawal plan, leaving both her future as Prime Minister and the Brexit uncertain. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. But first, as always, a huge shout out to all of our first-time viewers. A very, very warm welcome to you. I post 2 videos a day analyzing current events in line with some really awesome conservative trends. So if you would, please smack that bell and subscribe button. It'll be an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel. All right, so it's now official. Theresa May's proposed plan to implement a kinda, sorta Brexit went down in flames in the British Parliament. Now, simply put, no one was surprised by this, okay? May's deal was widely expected to lose, and lose rather decisively. I'm sure you remember that this deal was supposed to be voted on by the British Parliament 5 weeks ago, but it was... When it was clear that it was going to go down in defeat back then, May withdrew the deal from consideration and promised to make some changes to it. But, well, let's just put it this way, she never got them. And so left without any other recourse, she submitted the deal to a parliamentary vote. And as we noted, it was defeated decisively. The deal that May had brokered for Brexit, broke. Nevertheless, the deal, frankly, was disastrous from the moment it was announced. The deal itself was ridiculously complicated. The actual published proposal is nearly 600 pages long, and it infuriated the very people that you want on your side in a successful Brexit. At issue, the fundamental issue, as I understand it, is that this Brexit deal that May presented would, in fact, leave Northern Ireland more or less as a vassal state under the EU. This is right. It all has to do with the landlocked border between the Republic of Ireland, which is part of the EU, and Northern Ireland, which is, of course, a part of the UK and going the way of Brexit. The border between the Republic of Ireland and the UK's Northern Ireland will be the only land border between the EU and Britain after Brexit is finally realized. Now, because of a 1998 peace deal, there would be no custom checks or other barriers in the border between the Republic of Ireland and the UK's Northern Ireland. But that, of course, was agreed to when they were both part of the EU. Now, with Brexit, they're going to have to figure out where to put border checks and controls in place. And as things stood with this deal put forward by Theresa May, Northern Ireland would, for all practical purposes, still be bound by EU laws on sales tax, farm subsidies, state aid, which of course contradicts the whole concept of the Brexit. Remember, these EU regulations apply even when goods are passing from mainline Britain to Northern Ireland, which is within Britain, which is an intrinsic part of the Union, such that when goods cross from mainland Britain to Northern Ireland, there would have to be checks and customs to ensure compliance with EU standards. See, all of this means that the EU may in fact actually have a veto vote over the UK's trade policies from within Britain, and Britain would have absolutely no say because of Brexit, which in effect strips them of any voting membership within the EU. And so, of course, many are asking, how on earth can you say that there was a Brexit when a major portion of Britain continues to be reduced to obeying rules made by member nations of the European Union, and now no longer has any say about it within the European Parliament. Right? So this is why there are many commentators who frankly are seriously putting forward the notion that this is nothing more than an attempt by Remainers. Remember, Theresa May was a Remainer. She campaigned to stay within the Union. This is an attempt by Remainers, now Remoaners, to thwart and sabotage the entire Brexit. Again, it's a kind of coup, all right? Like we're seeing here in the United States by the deep state and the establishment and the corporatist globalist media against Trump. It's a kind of attempted coup to overturn an election, right? To thwart the clear, democratically expressed will, in this case, of the British population. So needless to say, the DUP, which is a Democratic Unionist Party, that's the dominant party in Northern Ireland, they're very, very conservative. They're a great party. They're the coalition partner with May's Conservative Party, which needs them in order to govern, very much like what we're seeing, say, in Germany and Merkel's Christian Democratic Union, that actually needs 2 other parties, the CSU and the Social Democrats, to govern. The Conservative Party is absolutely dependent on the far more conservative DUP for a functioning government, and the DUP made it clear from the get-go that they had no intention of approving this agreement. since they're going to be inordinately affected by EU border and customs control. I mean, they'll basically be under EU governance without any possibility of representation. So right after the deal was originally announced, in a major blow to Theresa May, her main negotiator, Dominic Raab, just announced his resignation. He thought that the deal was just disastrous and actually potentially even break up the United Kingdom. In fact, he was one of 4 ministers, if I recall, who resigned in protest of this deal just after it was announced. Four Brexiteers who thought this deal was a total and complete sham. All told, Theresa May's seen 10 cabinet members resign over her handling of Brexit. So obviously, this vote today was, it was no surprise, all right? So where do we go from here? Well, simply put, Britain now is in the position to await the final countdown to the fulfillment of Article 50. Article 50 of the Treaty of Lisbon is a law established back in 2009 that gives any EU member state the right to leave the Union. Theresa May was the first European Prime Minister to trigger Article 50, which she did back on March 29th, 2017. And as I understand it, that gave Britain and the EU about 2 years to work out a deal. And if no such deal is worked out, then Britain simply vacates the EU. Britain becomes once again a sovereign nation. And that date for us is, of course, March 29th of this year. Now, what precisely the relationship will be with the EU in terms of trade and economics and international law, I mean, nobody knows, right? That's the uncertainty that is now putting extensive pressure to actually postpone the date. There will most likely be a filing for the extension of the deadline for some kind of agreement to be reached between Britain and the EU in a post-Brexit relationship. Having said that, I do believe we are going to see a Brexit in the next few months. 2019 will be the first year that the EU actually lost a member state, as it were. There is just, I mean, frankly, there's no such thing as a regret, right? Like a buyer's remorse that Brits may be having over Brexit. No, in the most recent poll, when asked whether leaving the EU is the right thing to do, well over 80% of leavers said absolutely was the right thing to do. It remains very, very popular decision among Brexiteers. There's no going back on it. There's no second guessing going on. Half of Labour's constituencies voted to leave. Labour isn't going to vote against them. Britain will leave the EU within the next few months, and the EU will be one less nation, which of course spells disaster for the EU. Once member nations see Britain flourishing, as they will, as an independent, prosperous, sovereign nation, they're going to get very, very envious, right? Do not be surprised if we see nations like Italy, or dare I even say France, a post-Macron France, leaving the EU. Or maybe even the Visegrad Four of Central Europe, right? Creating their own little alliance and coalition. So this really is nothing short of a complete and total disaster for EU, and they know it. But having said that, for Britain, the whole Brexit uprising has really only contributed to throwing into relief the deep divisions that exist within the British population. Very similar to the way the Trump presidency has foregrounded the deep divisions here in the States. Brits remain very, very divided as a nation when it comes to deeply held values. And as others have noticed, don't think that Brexiteers are necessarily going to be that happy about the separation agreement once it happens. If a deadline is renegotiated and a deal is reached that does require significant compromise on the part of the leavers, they're going to feel inevitably betrayed, at least to a certain extent. They voted to leave, and if there is a sense that that vote has been betrayed, that's only going to deepen the divide among Britain's growing populist revolt and the pro-globalist, pro-continental portion of the population. So it remains to be seen what comes of this. But alas, in the meantime, Theresa May's deal has gone down to complete and utter defeat, and we'll certainly be keeping our eyes on how things develop in the months ahead. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Click on our Patreon or PayPal links below and become a supporter of this channel and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish. God bless.